A quiet place just for us. The morning started out perfectly. Coffee on the steps of the camper, the sun already warm, the birds loud as always in Florida. You sat next to me in those favorite shorts, gray, a little faded from the sun and salt, and looked at the clouds. Look, you said. I looked. On the horizon, a dark streak. Not threatening yet, just dark. But who knows where it's going? A shower? I asked. It'll be here by noon, you said calmly. I felt a slight disappointment. We had planned the beach, the ocean, another walk along the shore. But you were already looking at your phone with that expression that means, I found something. Get ready, you said. I know where we're going. We left early. You drove and were silent, in that good silence that means, I have an idea and I want you to see for yourself. I didn't ask. I learned, when you're like that, it's better to wait. It's always worth it. The road went from the coast inland to where Florida is different. Not the resort one with palm trees and hotels, but the real thing. Dense forests on both sides, long, flat roads sometimes, ranches behind wooden fences. The sky was getting darker overhead. That cloud band was catching up with us. Are we running away from the downpour? I asked. No, you said. We're heading toward it. I laughed. You stopped the camper van by a small lake. I would never have found this place on my own. A narrow dirt road between the trees, then a small clearing, and suddenly, water. Fresh, dark green, surrounded by cypress trees growing straight out of it. Quiet, closed, as if hidden from the whole world. What is this? I whispered. A fresh water shower, you said. Florida springs. The water here stays the same temperature all year round, 20 degrees. And it's crystal clear. I got out of the camper van and walked to the shore. The water is incredible, transparent to the bottom, even where it's deep. Greenish blue, the color that only occurs in freshwater springs. The bottom is sandy, light, with shadows from the trees swaying on the surface. Can you swim here? I asked. That's what we're here for, you replied. The first drops of rain fell as we entered the water. Not a shower yet, just the first drops. Big, warm, Florida-like. They fell on the surface of the lake and spread out in circles. Thousands of circles at once. Intertwined, alive. The water is cool after the Florida heat. I waded in, up to my knees, and stopped. Cold, I said. Always 20 degrees, you said. Already waist deep in water. Come in quickly, it's easier. I took a breath and dove in. The cold hit me immediately, but not unpleasantly. The kind of cold that wakes up every cell in my body. I surfaced, with my mouth open, my hair wet on my face, and felt so alive I wanted to scream with joy. There, I shouted. You laughed. He was already swimming next to me. And then the downpour came. A real Florida downpour, not the kind that drips and passes, but the kind that comes at once and completely. The sky opened and the water poured, thick, warm, noisy. In seconds, everything around me became different. The trees were darker, heavier with moisture. The air was thick, alive, with that smell of wet earth and leaves called petrichor that I love more than any perfume. We were in the water, and the downpour was falling on us from above. Rain on the water. Thousands of drops around, thousands of circles on the surface, that continuous even noise that fills everything. And at the same time, silence. Because there are no other sounds, only rain, only water, only us. I raised my face up. I closed my eyes. I let the rain fall on me, warm, thick, endless. I felt your hand on my waist. I opened my eyes. You were standing next to me, up to my chest in water, wet through and through, with that expression that I love so much. Not serious, not focused, just alive. Just here. Just happy. So what? You asked. The best thing that has happened to me in a long time, I said honestly. You smiled, pulled me closer. We swam in the downpour, just swam. I swam on my back and watched the rain fall from the sky, hundreds of silver threads disappearing into the water around me. The trees on the banks were leaning from the wind. Somewhere in the crowns, a bird was screaming, dissatisfied, loud. You were swimming next to me, sometimes touching my shoulder, sometimes just looking at me. Aren't you afraid of the downpour? You asked. With you? No, I said. Then we went ashore, soaked to the bone, laughing, barely finding towels in the camper van. You wrapped me in a large towel, quickly, practically, but with those hands that are always warm. Are you cold? I asked. No, I said. On the contrary. You were looking at me, wet hair, rosy cheeks, that expression in your eyes that happens after something lively and unexpected. You're beautiful when wet, you said simply. That's the strangest compliment I've ever heard, I replied. But it's true, you said seriously. I laughed and snuggled up to you, wet, in a towel under the camper van that protected us from the still ongoing downpour. You hugged me, warmly, tightly. We stood and listened to the rain. The downpour lasted an hour. We sat inside the camper van, the door open, towels on our shoulders, hot coffee in our hands. We watched the rain drum on the lake, the trees sway, everything around us shine and breathe. You were talking about Florida springs, how there were hundreds of them here, how Native Americans considered them sacred places. Fresh water that comes out of the ground and look clean, constant, unchanging. Constant, I repeated. I like that word. You looked at me. Why? Because some things should be constant, I said. The water in the spring. You're there. You were silent for a second. Then he took my hand. Constantly, you said quietly, like a promise, like a fact. When the downpour subsided, suddenly as it had come, the forest around the lake transformed. Everything shone. Every leaf, every branch, every blade of grass, covered with drops that burned in the sun that came out from behind the clouds. The air, clean, alive, with that smell after the rain that you want to inhale and inhale. We went outside. The lake, calm now, without drops, became even more transparent. It reflected the sky, blue already, with the last white clouds fleeing to the east. The cypresses looked at themselves in the water. I took off my shoes and went to the shore. I stood barefoot on the wet sand, cold, pleasant. The water touched my toes. You came and stood next to me, also barefoot. We stood looking at that lake after the rain, and I thought, this is it. This is what you can't buy and can't plan. What only happens when you let go of control and let the day guide you. A dark cloud on the horizon. A dirt road between the trees. Fresh water and rain from above, and you right there. The best days are unplanned. On the way back, you drove, and I looked out the window at the wet Florida forest floating by. The drops on the glass gathered and rolled down. The sun lit everything from the side, that golden after-rain world. I thought about us, about how we were, busy, distant, each in our own screen, and about how we had become. We learned to stop and look at the dark cloud and drive toward it instead of running away. To jump into the fresh water in the rain and laugh, standing barefoot after the rain and saying nothing. because words are not needed. We learn to be alive, together. Dear listener, if your plans are ruined when the weather is not the same, when everything is not going as you wanted, do not be sad. Sometimes a downpour leads you to that quiet lake where the water is crystal clear and constant, to the moment when you stand barefoot after the rain and feel, this is it. This is the real thing. Let go of the plan. Trust the day. It knows where to lead you. Write in the comments what happened to you after such a day without a plan. Thank you for being here. Until the next episode.